Just like some kind of unstoppable revenge demon in a hockey mask, the NES will never die. And thanks to a vibrant scene of passionate developers, we're still getting new games for this wonderful console, including some Halloween-tastic horror gems, 28 of which we'll be slashing our way through in this video. This won't be an attempt to cover every single potential horror-themed project floating around out there, but it should be a nice fleshy chunk to get your haunted homebrew journey started off. Get your machete at the ready, it's time to hack into some homebrew horror on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And we'll kick things off here with a quadrilogy of NES demakes from 8-Bit Slasher. First up is Friday the 13th Return to Camp Blood, originally made for PC with Click and Play in 1998 when the developer was in their teenage years, and eventually remade for the NES in 2022. You play as Jason himself, and you kill campers. What more could you possibly want? You're never in danger of dying, which checks out, and you essentially explore the area and murder anyone in your path to make progress. It's a pretty short and straightforward rampage, but generally hilarious and full of fun references to the films. You even get a bonus slaughter stage, a trend that will continue in the other 3 games we'll get into. These slasher gameplay mechanics get expanded a bit in their next game, Halloween October 31st, this time putting you in control of Michael Myers, but this time around you do need to be more precise and timely with your murdering, otherwise you will have to make multiple attempts in your pursuit of Laurie Strode. I really like the 8-bit renditions of the old John Carpenter soundtrack here, and there are some truly gasp-worthy cinematic moments to be had. Again, this is a pretty short experience, but the challenge level might make this one last a little bit longer. Eight-Bit Slasher's third game, Nightmare on Elm Street, Son of 100 Maniacs, takes more of a storytelling approach, with more dialogue and cutscenes than the previous games, but still plenty of moments where you get to control Freddy Krueger, invading the dreams of teenagers and slashing them to pieces. This one definitely starts to get very surreal and weird, and brings out some really creative sequences and hilarious bonus stages. And the final title in this gruesome foursome is Candyman, Be My Victim, based on a demo from 2006 and remade for NES in a more complete form in 2023. This one probably has the most fleshed out gameplay of the 4, with 5 different levels and some fun bonus stages in between. The main gameplay hook here is... oh, do I even need to finish that sentence? You know the drill. Oh wait, that's a Slumber Party Massacre. Oh well. The highlight here, for me, was the final bonus level, which includes one-on-one showdowns with the 3 Maniacs from the other games. A somewhat challenging and very satisfying finale to this 4-pack, a retro horror fan's dream. Due to all the games being fairly quick to complete, I'd suggest just playing them all in a row. And there's even a ROM that combines all 4 games into one deadly package. And one more here from the same developer, but under their Fista Productions label, it's the aptly named Carpet Shark, based on an audacious 2013 short film about a 30,000-year-old shark whose soul has been trapped in an 8x10 area rug. With lore this deep, you may be expecting a 100-hour RPG, but the concept actually translates seamlessly into this 4-stage arcade-style single-screen jam, where you must eat as many people as you can in the time allotted, all while not running out of your health. Simple but downright fun, because you're a freaking carpet shark. Next up is a horror homebrew classic from 2016, Haunted Halloween 85 from Retrotink Games, an action platformer oozing with spooky charm. You play as Donnie on an adventure to save the town of Possum Hollow on Halloween night from a mysterious evil presence that has turned people into zombies that are unleashing all sorts of chaos. I have quite the soft spot for this one, as it was the first homebrew NES cartridge I ever purchased, direct from its source in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it's certainly a wonderful game, full of creepy environments, a great soundtrack, lots of humorous moments and references, and very fun beat-em-up gameplay. And I'm happy to report the game's sequel, Haunted Halloween 86, gets even better. It's clear the devs had learned and evolved while making the first game, as this one retains those similar fun Halloween vibes, but it feels a lot more polished. You can now switch characters on the fly between Donnie and Tammy, and also learn a handful of really cool special moves as you progress through another Halloween night where Possum Hollow is under duress from evil once again. Overall, it really is a pleasure to play this one, and the level of quality is definitely up there with plenty of other original NES classics. And another recent Retrotainment treasure we have here is Full Quiet, a vast and challenging open-world adventure game drenched in foreboding atmosphere. As you navigate through the woods for your lost son, you'll encounter all sorts of mysterious creatures, restore power to various safe houses, and utilize old-school radio equipment to uncover clues and survive this nightmare. This game is really special. It's one of those years-long Kickstarter projects that I had almost forgotten that I backed, and then suddenly I hear that it's done, and man, it is great. It was very much worth the wait, as the game feels lovingly crafted and absolutely huge in scope. It really brought me back to the old days where you really have to figure out stuff on your own, read the manual, and immerse yourself in this complex and puzzling world. It's a must-play for fans of survival horror and exploration, or anyone looking for a very unique and lengthy experience on the NES. And one last Retrotainment game I have to mention isn't pure horror by any means, but I gotta showcase their gross-out gem, Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike, and the Quest for Stale Gum, an extremely fun platformer with a Topps licensing tie-in that found its perfect home on the NES. You can switch between characters with different disgusting abilities through a variety of locations, of course collecting and trading Garbage Pail Kids cards along the way. There are definitely moments for horror fans as well, with some monstrous boss fights, a level literally putting you through hell, and a bonus game featuring perhaps one of the most terrifying things in life, using a porta potty. And I will mention, all 4 of these Retrotainment games I've shown here are available on the NES, but you can also check them out on Steam or just about any other modern console. And please forgive me for my pronunciation attempt here. La Vie de Mort is an NES port by Parasoft of a 2010 PC game originally developed by Loco Malito, heavily inspired by classic ZX Spectrum platformers and described as an obsolete game for a dark passage of history. You play as a Cathar monk during the Albigensian Crusade, the game opening up with a narrow escape into a mysterious abandoned abbey, only to uncover an ancient evil lurking within. The gameplay takes place amongst 23 screens as you run, jump, and explore the ominous environments with no means of attacking any of the creatures you come across. You can be killed in one hit, but there are a fair number of lives and checkpoints to keep things fair, and a little bit of puzzle solving mixed in with the precise platforming. I haven't beaten this one yet, but I really enjoyed my first few attempts with it and definitely want to see this one through eventually. Those interested may also want to look at the wide range of ports available on other platforms like the Sega Genesis, Commodore 64, and ZX Spectrum, amongst many others. This next game sits more firmly in the adjacent dark fantasy genre, but it's still absolutely worth showing off here for a bit. Dungeons and Doomknights from Artix Games is a self-described Zelda-vania action-adventure game released in 2023 with a mix of top-down and side-scrolling action and exploration, with a wide variety of skills and items to acquire, loads of evil undead baddies to contend with, and probably most importantly, a death-dealing Pomeranian. As you can probably guess just from that, this game has a pretty fun sense of humor, but it also still has a polished art style and game feel, and it's just an absolute joy to play this. This is another one I haven't quite finished yet, but I think it will probably give you a few hours of playthrough time, and maybe more if you want to see some of the alternate endings or uncover all of the game's secrets. Another previous Artix Games project is the Secret of Necronancy, which was created for a 1-month game jam in 2022. So it's a pretty short demo with a great title that can be easily beaten in a few minutes for now, but I really hope it gets expanded upon someday, as it's a pretty fun puzzle platformer that has you summoning your skeletal pals Mr. Bones, Skello Kitty, and Choppers to reach each exit door in a handful of screens. If an expanded version of this was to be made with the same care put into Dungeons and Doomknights, I'm definitely on board to support this one, and we'll be keeping my eye on this. And this is Wolfling, a neat little lycanthropic platformer released in 2019 by Lazy Cow, with different versions for the NES and Commodore 64. You play as Ling, a girl who awakes imprisoned in a dungeon for her innate ability to transform into a wolf while in contact with moonlight. Luckily, a few beams of lunar goodness will sneak their way down into the depths and switch you over to doggo mode. One of the first things you might notice in this is how smoothly animated your character is, and while it does take a bit to get used to the controls, you'll eventually get a better handle on the momentum-based movement. You have a few different maneuvers and attacks in each form, and a handful of little goblin guys and weird mutant things to contend with as you explore and try to find a way to escape this prison, rich with dark atmospheres. It's a fairly short game, but only having one life and no continues, this will extend your playtime a bit. I should also mention a Wolfling Reloaded is in the works for the Commodore, although I'm not sure if there are any plans for an NES port. Either way, it's a project to keep an eye out for. And here we have a cute and slightly spooky platformer from the Mohone twins, a team based in Spain making games for a variety of old platforms. Lala the Magical is their submission to the 2016 NES Dev competition and is based on an earlier project of theirs called Lala Prologue. You play as a scantily clad mage's apprentice who is bored one day while her teacher is away and decides to hit up the dangerous Sky Palace in search of 3 power gems. At first you can only run and jump around, but you'll eventually find a magic wand, along with items granting the ability to instantly create platforms underneath you, a key part of the gameplay hook as you navigate through the game's 3 levels. It's straightforward, but a rather fun time with very responsive controls, even with a bit of cutscene polish mixed in there too. The Mohone twins also made a handful of games centering around their favorite pantsless protagonist, Cheril, who often seems to run into zombies, vampires, and skeletons in her various adventures. One of their older games, Cheril Perils, has an unfinished but still quite good NES port that was eventually transformed into another game called Yoon. It has a neat mechanic where you must hit a resonator switch to freeze nearby enemies and stomp on them before the time runs out. A couple of years later, Cheril would decide to take up writing, but instead gets tasked with ridding the area of zombies once again in Cheril the Writer. Those resonators would return here as you must freeze the enemies to get rid of them and progress to the next area. And for the 6th game in the Cheril trilogy, and don't ask me how that math checks out, but we have Cadaverion, taking form as a brain-twisting, block-pushing puzzle game. There's a pretty tight timer here as well, so there isn't much room for error as you move statues onto switches while avoiding any of the various ghouls roaming about the screen. And one last Mohone twins game to mention is one of their older titles, Sir Ababol Remastered, a pure run-and-jump platformer with some Ghosts and Goblins vibes. Although you seem to have lost your sword and have no weapons to speak of here, so you'll just be bouncing off of enemies Mario style, all while collecting the required flowers on your journey. Beating the game can also unlock 2 other characters with different movesets, so there is some replayability there as well. All in all, this is honestly just a few of the titles from the Mohone twins. They seem to have been pretty prolific over the years with Homebrew on various platforms, and I definitely suggest checking out their website for tons of fun downloads. In one of the more well-known Homebrew games in this bunch, it's Micro Mages, released by Morphcat Games in 2019, and very notable for cramming such a gorgeous and polished experience into 40 kilobytes. You and up to 3 friends can control a cute little wizard and scale your way up through various vertical stages of the Demon Fortress, battling all sorts of skeletons, goblins, bubble goats, devils, and some ghoulish bosses. The controls are great here, with a very satisfying wall jump mechanic and a subtle but dynamic auto-scrolling screen that will keep you on the move. It's maybe not a pure horror title, but definitely some relevant aesthetics, and really just a blast to play through, so I felt inclined to include it. And from Apsur Games, here we have Proto Dere, an NES prototype version of one of their PC games titled Daredevil EXE, with this version released publicly after that game had received some notoriety thanks to a Markiplier playthrough. This version is essentially a one-hit kill precision platformer with lots of trial and error, and luckily lots of extra lives to start with. But most notable here is the stylized, glitchy aesthetic with some truly unsettling moments and a unique presentation. It's a rather short experience that ends with many unanswered questions, but I gotta say I'm pretty intrigued to check out the full game on PC at some point. Ghoul Grind is an auto-scrolling platformer from Woogworks, released in 2020, putting you in control of Nox and Veronica as they run through the world of St. Krypton. You cannot move to the left or the right, and can only attack, jump, and switch between the 2 characters at any time, which do have some differences. Nox can double jump and has a straightforward projectile, while Veronica can only jump once, but a little bit higher, along with a sine wave-shaped shot. Some obstacles in the game can only be destroyed by a certain character, so as things get more challenging, you'll need to be flipping back and forth Ikaruga style to progress through 6 worlds with 3 levels each, and some boss fights as well. Part of me kinda wishes there could have been a little more flexibility in the movement here to make the game a bit more dynamic, but I can also appreciate the intent in the game design to keep your options more minimal, which does end up creating some rather challenging situations later in the game. It's time to throw some monster uppercuts with Creepy Brawlers, a beastly boxing title from Megacat where you punch the daylights out of a variety of movie monsters. Like you actually get pulled into the silver screen and everything. Now at first glance of the visuals here, one might guess that this might be a weird clone of the NES smash hit Power Punch 2, aka Mike Tyson's Intergalactic Power Punch, but luckily this one plays a bit more like classic Punch-Out, with the focus on reading your opponent and counter-punching with precise timing and rhythm. It's pretty challenging as well. Luckily there is a training mode that lets you learn how each fighter operates before making another attempt at the Horror Heavyweight Championship. And another blood-soaked Megacat title on the way soon is The Meeting, recently launched on Kickstarter along with a playable demo which you're seeing here. You play as a ghost minotaur with a variety of paranormal abilities to fly and headbutt your way through over 40 puzzle platforming levels, all in a quest to recover your own meat. In the demo so far, you can hover, pass through walls, and telekinetically control objects, but you do have a limited spirit meter, and you'll need to figure out how to exit the stage without it running out. Or without losing all of your health, of course. The demo includes the first 10 levels along with a boss fight, and it certainly seems like they're cooking up something special here. Here we have a quirky and spooky little adventure game released in 2023 by Dalian Retro Games, The House in the Cemetery. Your scientist uncle has just purchased a creepy mansion to conduct strange experiments, but he'll need your help with the paranormal havoc that ensues. The game is focused on exploring, finding items, and puzzle solving, but with a nice touch of humor as well, giving off some great Maniac Mansion vibes at times. I love these vampire guys. Admittedly, I've only played the demo so far, but I was pretty charmed, and I might have to check out the full version eventually. And it's Zombiehunter Bob, a fun horror-flavored run-and-gun by Bardby, made for the NES Maker Bite-Off competition in 2022. You've got a gun, some grenades, and plenty of zombies to explode. It's great. Sometimes you'll also hop into a little minecart thing with a cool skull on the side. It's simple, short, and straightforward, but definitely enjoyable. And the music's really catchy too. The goofy cutscenes are also a nice touch, and really it's pretty impressive work for only being made in 6 weeks. They Came to Wreak Hell is another game made for a competition, this time for the NES Dev Compo in 2022, and developed by Team Disposable. This one has yet to hit a full version 1, but what's here so far is a top-down shooter reminiscent of Alien Syndrome, as you run and gun down mobs of alien blobs wreaking havoc on Earth. It's fairly basic so far, but you do get a few different gun power-ups and even simultaneous 2-player co-op. The dev seems to be working on another top-down action project called One Last Bloody Gasp, so they may be someone to keep an eye on for future games in the works. And next up is Space Mutants, the most recent title from TBone Studios. It's a brutally difficult action platformer with a wonderful raw style. The look and game feel reminded me a bit of old DOS games, with a very distinct and colorful aesthetic, and some very challenging trial and error gameplay. The developer also just released a new Extendo Uncut version with more content, so maybe someday if I can actually get past the first few screens, I can see more of the game. And if you like this brash look and punishing style of gameplay, you'll definitely want to check out T-Bone's other games: Death Complex 1 and 2, Witch's Weed, Bowels of the Beast, and Assault on Planet Beelzebub. They definitely all have a similar vibe and look, but with some slight differences in the gameplay. And it's really cool to see how the developer has progressed over the course of his output. And in our final game of the compilation here, we have Graveyard Dude, a wonderful spooky Sokoban game developed by Rainy Baker. Spookybon? Can that be a thing? Anyways, in a similar vein to a Lolo game, you'll be pushing around coffins in various single-screen rooms to meet the requirements for exiting each of the 33 levels included in the full version. At first, some of the puzzles may feel dreadfully easy, but they're deftly introducing mechanics and preparing your brain to be twisted into a pretzel as the difficulty ramps up quite nicely the further you get. And man, the music did not have to go this hard. I love it. Now I do have to showcase this one with a heavy heart, as I was really sad to hear that the developer passed away recently. Her bold creativity will be dearly missed. She has left us way too soon. Rest in peace, Rainy. So that's all the NES horror homebrew I have to share today. Please make sure to check out the links in the description to grab some of these games and support all of these wonderful creators. And I don't doubt more NES games will be getting made as time goes on, and I surely have to have missed a few projects floating around in the deeper pockets of the internet. So please feel free to share any other homebrew recommendations in the comments if you have any. And if you like this compilation format, check out some of my other lengthy horror game videos focused on various consoles. And thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.